Welcome to the funnel. My name is John Shea, and I am the president of Alignment Group. This is episode number 184 of the funnel, how to build a successful sales onboarding program. Before we get started, I just want to remind you to head on over to alignment-group.com and subscribe to the funnel. We will send you the show notes. So if you're thinking about taking notes, we're driving in your car and I say something that's just truly amazing, it does happen on occasion. Don't worry about it. If you've subscribed to the funnel, you'll get the notes in your inbox. Okay, so let's get started. Today you will learn, why is it so difficult? Why is it so difficult to start an onboarding process? What happens when you change? And then we'll talk about the 3-step process for building your program. So I want to talk about why is it so difficult and why people have problems building their onboarding, because I think it sets the stage for what comes next. I think understanding why this happens is helpful. And I will tell you this. I do a lot of different things for a lot of different companies, right? From building out sales processes to consulting with managers to doing sales development and training, you name it, I do it, right? Hiring process, big part of what I do. One of the more difficult things for people is to build the onboarding process. So when I ask people if they have an onboarding process, I get a lot of yes answers and then a whole bunch of information as to what they do. And it's really kind of all over the place. Some are sort of on the HR side of things, right? Well, we take them through the 401k and they know when they have vacation. Great. That's going to sell a lot of stuff for you. So I hear a lot of that, but I don't really hear true onboarding. And that's a problem. So first I'm going to tell you there's very little investment or no investment at all. I think that's one of the reasons why it's so difficult. It takes time and effort. I don't know that it takes a ton of money to build an onboarding program. At least when I do it with folks, it's not as if, other than paying me to help you do it, there really isn't an investment, a huge investment. It's about time and productivity and getting everybody involved. That's the investment. But no one invests in it. No one builds out their program or process, and I'm really confused by that. A lot of folks focus on things, like I said, HR or product training, right? Well, they know the product, they get them up and running, they can sell because they work somewhere else and they had some success and it said so on the resume and I liked them in the interview. Okay. But they don't know your sales methodology or your sales process or how to get things done in your company. They're not part of the culture yet. They might not understand the product, but is that what you want? You want them just dumping product information on people? It's not going to sell a lot. Sometimes they hire the wrong salespeople. Okay, well, what does that have to do with onboarding? Even a great onboarding program isn't going to help somebody be successful who isn't supposed to be successful, the wrong person. But it will do this. It will help you find out earlier if they're going to be unsuccessful. And then you can make a decision in 30 or 60 days versus a year from now. Or they make this decision for you a year from now. And you've lost a ton of money. Where does the assessment come into this? Why do I have assessment down? Well, the assessment is part of the hiring process. It tells you what this person is capable of. It's not the answer. Go back and listen to the 6-step sales hiring process. However, it does tell you how long it's going to take to ramp up. There's other things, and I'll get to that later in this podcast. But the assessment is a real key indicator to whether this person can make it with your company or not. So they don't deploy an assessment. They don't use it in the onboarding process. They hire the wrong salespeople, and they don't know it. And you might be saying to me, why is that so difficult? Because they can't see the forest for the trees. Because there's a lot of other noise in their way. That's why. Or they view onboarding through a very narrow scope. And they're not broadening their vision as to what it should be or could be. And they don't invest the time or the effort into being successful with it. So I know I repeated it, but I just need to get that point across. It's important for me, you to understand why. So what good things happen when you change? Now I have here what happens when you change for those of you watching the video. Why would you invest the time, effort, sometimes money, into building a sales onboarding program if nothing happens? Nothing good happens. So let's talk about what happens when you change. First, you reduce attrition. Okay. Yes, you make bad hires. Yes, people leave companies for various reasons. Maybe to grow their career, maybe a move, maybe to get out of the industry. There could be 1,000 reasons. It has nothing to do with onboarding or nothing to do with your company. But you can relate attrition to poor onboarding. It just starts the relationship off on the wrong foot, and it never gets tracked. It's on the right track. You put someone through a world-class onboarding program, sales onboarding program, and they're ready to face the challenges of the world in front of them in your company. And they have a lot of appreciation for what you've done for them. Why? Because no one else does it. Because onboarding is so few and far between. They're thinking, if I go somewhere else, am I going to get what I got here? Am I going to get the best training? Are they going to onboard me the same way that this company did? You might say, that's a crazy reason to stay. That's part of it. The other is that if you bring somebody along and you onboard them properly, they're going to make more money in a shorter amount of time. They're going to be successful with your company. They're going to be in a position to sell more and then advance their career if you continue to develop them. Again, reducing attrition. You're going to increase productivity. And everybody goes, oh, yeah, that's easy. Get people ramped up in a short amount of time, et cetera, et cetera. They sell a lot more for me. I increase productivity. Yes. The sales manager has increased productivity because they have a process for onboarding. The team number goes up. That increases productivity. But think about all of the people, internally and externally, that a new sales rep affects. And ask yourself, is it possible to increase productivity for prospects? For selling more business? Sure. Is it possible to increase productivity internally? Because internally, they don't have to babysit the new sales rep who doesn't know anything, who needs help in walking through every step of every process. And oh, by the way, they asked 6 people, got 6 different answers. So now we're up to the 7th way of doing it because they kind of blended them together and created their own. So you can see that productivity increases not just for the number and the sales rep and the sales manager, it increases across the company. You get a shorter ramp-up time when you put a world-class sales onboarding program in place. Shorter ramp-up time. Wow. Just think about that for a second. Now, maybe you have a complex product or service, and it takes 6 months. Maybe you can get that down to 5. Maybe you're like my buddy Lindsay, selling to the copier industry, right? Office products. That's about a 90 to 120-day process to get up to speed. It's not that it isn't complex. It's just that you can train somebody and get them, and they make a lot of money in that industry, but you can train people to be successful in about 90 to 120 days. What if we can get that down? What if we can increase new salesperson return on investment? That's what we look at in the assessment. Remember I said we talk about the assessment? Well, in our assessment, we look at the ramp-up time. Let's say you have somebody that's recommended and they score well. Everything else works out. The ramp-up time is going to be a little shorter and the return on investment is going to be a little shorter. And you're going to increase that return on investment. Maybe somebody who's kind of in the middle, worthy of consideration, maybe it takes a little longer to ramp up. That's okay. It depends on what you're trying to achieve. I'm not saying you shouldn't move forward. It depends on your situation. However, we can tell you that. Put a good onboarding program in place, and you'll realize those numbers. Okay, let's jump into the 3-step process. I made this simple. There's 3 parts to this process. Step 1, internal interviews. Step 2, goals. And step 3, plan. So let's talk about those internal interviews. You want to learn how your onboarding program can be improved and what's working and what's not working? Ask your current salespeople. I'm not telling you to ask somebody that's been there for 20 years. Now, if you've never hired a sales rep and you're building from scratch, that's okay. We can still do that. And then we can circle around and ask them what worked and what didn't. And there's a feedback provision in this whole process where we do get feedback from the sales rep. And that's helpful. But I'm talking about if you don't have a real good program or you don't feel like it's good enough, ask them. They'll tell you. And you have to start with the premise. This is pretty simple, right? I'm not taking this personally. I want to know what the company did well, what we didn't do well, what I did well, what worked, what didn't work, what I didn't do well. I want every part of it. I won't take it personally. Where you think you needed more help, where you think you need a little less, walk them through the whole thing. Pick their brain. You'll be amazed at the responses you get. Some really good stuff there. Next, go to the department heads. Start with the department heads. I don't know how big your company is. A small company, maybe you have a couple people processing paperwork. I don't know if you're a bigger company. Go to the department heads. Anything that's customer facing sales rep facing. You want to talk to them. What works, what doesn't work. When we bring in a new rep, what are some of the things you notice when they interface with you? Well, they don't know this, they do know that. This is where we could use some help. This is what's working, this is what's not. Then ask their people that actually do the interfacing with the sales rep, people that work with the reps. Make it clear to them. This is not a bitch session. We're not here to complain about salespeople. What we're here to do is figure out how we can get them up to speed faster to make your job easier. Increase your productivity. Make your life easier. So tell me how we can improve that. Now, you're setting it up for the longer-term conversation of pulling them into the process. But you learn a lot about what's going on. Who works with the salespeople? Talk to them. Anybody that works with salespeople, talk to them. You have some really good customers, it's okay to reach out. Say, hey, we bring a new rep in. What do you like? What do you don't like? What happens? Well, I feel like I have to train them on my account. Okay. That makes sense. Tell me what you'd like them to know before they come in and meet with you. Right? Pretty easy stuff. You can do this part, right? The internal interviews. You'll learn a lot just from doing that. Step 2, goals. I want to talk about what that means, goals, and why it's important. I need to set out a vision for what this looks like, right? I need to build my program, and I need to know what the end result looks like. So I need to clearly define what the goals are. Now, if you're dealing in a bigger company, you're going to want to line that up with senior management goals, right? You want to make sure it fits. So you might have to have some conversations there. And if you're a small business and you have a plan in place, your goals, it needs to match that. It needs to be clearly defined. Okay? I want a vision for the outcome. And I want to make sure it lines up with with the goals of the company. And if this requires a brainstorming session, then get together and do a brainstorming session. I need to know what it's going to take for long-term success of my salespeople. Who's going to be involved in it? What are the financial implications? Implications, yes. Drawing a blank here. What does that look like, and is everybody in a position to support it? So if I have to get buy-in from senior management, I'm going to make sure that they support this outcome that I'm looking for. And that's what you're going to build a plan on. It's pretty simple to say it. Not as easy to build it, but you can do it. Step 3. Build the plan. Okay. That's easy. We're done. Just kidding. Okay. The way the plan works, the way you work the plan is, what do they need? It's that simple. Okay. What do they need to be successful? So I talk about the 3 buckets, right? The company knowledge, the product knowledge, sales knowledge. Then I break everything into pieces when it comes to that. Okay. So When we're talking about the plan, we need to start listing those things out. What are those things that are going to make them successful? And how will I deliver it? So if I have all this company knowledge and messaging, et cetera, what does that look like? And then how do I make that work? Okay? Something like the company, like navigating the waters of the company. How do people like to be communicated with? Email, voicemail? What's protocol? How do they get things done, keep things moving through the process? What does that look like? Okay? They need to know what they're selling and who they're selling it to. Okay? They don't need to be the most proficient in the product. But they need to get a mix of exactly what it is they need to know on the product that they're selling. And whether that's through your LMS, your online sales training, maybe support from a provider, maybe you're a reseller, a manufacturer might provide you with training and development. You might have an internal trainer, some one-on-one with experts in your company. One of the things that I love to do in that regard was pair salespeople up with people from different areas of the company that have product expertise and knowledge that can impart their wisdom on the salespeople. So mixing that up, but building the plan to do that. What does that look like? And of course, your sales methodology and your process. This is the part that drives me crazy, where people say, well, sales rep, they're experienced, they know what they're doing, they go out and they sell. That's all I need. Really? You get 10 people selling on 10 different methodologies, you're trying to manage that, you're going to pull your hair out. They need to know your sales methodology and how you sell. They need to know your sales process, benchmarked against how your buyers buy and the buyer personas and all that really good stuff. Okay, what do they need to implement all of this? What are the tools of the trade? We'll talk about that in future podcasts. So that's what I mean by how you'll deliver it, right? How are you going to deliver the sales training? Well, we're going to train them on sales. Okay, who's going to do that? I'm going to do that. Really? You're the manager. You can do some of it, but do you have the kind of time that's necessary to be successful? Do you have a support system in place? Do you have a tool like an LMS system to back you up? Let's get a schedule in place. What does that look like? They need to understand how to line all that stuff up and what's going to work. And if you have a plan for them, they'll dive right in. If you leave it up to them to plan, what's going to happen is they're going to work on the things that they think are important versus the things you think are important. You need to drive this. I don't care how experienced they are. You want them on board with your process, your methodology, and how you do things. When they've been there long enough and they've had tremendous amount of success with you, then they can walk in and tell you how you can improve or change things if they have an idea to help you. But I wouldn't allow someone to come in and redesign my onboarding because it fits what they do and how they do it. I need to flesh that out throughout the interview process. It's the best way to do that. Okay. Hopefully this kind of gives you the foundation for building your sales onboarding program. You can find us at The Funnel, alignment-group.com/thefunnel. Feel free to head on over and subscribe. We're on Facebook, Alignment Group, Twitter @ShayJohnR. I'm on LinkedIn, Google+. Feel free to reach out to us in any one of those social media platforms. You can find me at jshay@alignment-group.com. Feel free to email me anytime. Ask me questions. Offer up suggestions. Whatever it is you want to do. Stop by the website. There's all kinds of good stuff at alignment-group.com. Good downloads, ebooks, stuff to help you on your way with sales. Thank you for subscribing. And until next time, keep filling the funnel.